Hi, everybody. Hi again. I know if you tuned in with me earlier today, we had an interview with a powerhouse couple in the business community. And this afternoon, I am so excited to be able to interview Paulo. And I've been following him since I've been in this business and since I found him on like his page. And he is just like me, loves to travel. And so everything that he posts, I am like, yes, take me there. Let's go. Let's get going and let's visit all these places. And so I'm excited for you guys to get to know him. I am going to put him on the screen here and have him introduce himself quickly.
Okay.
Hi, Paulo.
Hi, Erica. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Paulo Perlez. I am originally from Calgary, but I was born in the Philippines, and my family immigrated when I was 6 months old, and so I grew up in Calgary for quite a while. Went to university there, worked at Foothills, worked at Tom Baker, and then I traveled around. But now I'm in Vancouver. I've been here for over 10 years now. So. It's home, but I might look at other places to live later on. So who knows? Yeah.
I know, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but yeah, with the business you have, you really can be anywhere. And
Yeah.
so today, yeah, thanks for that. But today I just wanted to ask you, can you give us a little bit of background of what your pains and struggles were before finding your business online?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, as I mentioned, well, I didn't mention like I went to school at University of Calgary. So I went there for nursing school. So I was there. I graduated in 2004-ish. Yeah. So I've been a nurse for almost 17 years now. I worked at Foothills Hospital, and then after that, I worked there for a couple years, and then moved to Vancouver and worked here for a few years. Worked at thoracic surgery, respiratory medicine, and then after that, I quit there and then moved to England and worked in England for a year as a nurse. I worked at American Hospital, but I ended up leaving there after a year because the type of nursing I was doing out there was just not the kind that I wanted to do. It was just very basic nursing. So I went back to Tom Baker, to Calgary, and I worked at Tom Baker because I got a job offer working as an oncology clinical trials nurse for the gastrointestinal group. So I worked there for a couple years, and then I think Alberta at that time had some job cuts, or there was like hiring issues that they were doing at that time. So I was only working part time, and I couldn't. And at that time I was already working extra shifts, but I couldn't work anything else after that once the whole hiring freeze happened. And so I had to go back to like only working 2 days a week, and I didn't know when that was going to happen, like when that lift was going to happen with the restrictions. So I ended up moving back to Vancouver and worked here at a hospital for a bit, and then got into BC Cancer and got back into research again. And so I did that for almost 6 years at BC Cancer for a bit, and then I started burning out because the section I was working with my other colleagues, one of the nurses, there's three of us in total. One of them ended up going on sick leave because in clinical trials, it's a very stressful nursing sort of role. It's a niche sort of area for nurses because you're not just having to deal with patient care, you're having to deal with accounting, what else? Accounting, logistics of getting patients onto study, coordinating with the doctors, coordinating with the pharmaceutical companies and sponsors to get a patient on study, dealing with contracts and so on, and dealing with all the different vendors to get a study up and running. And when a patient's on study, you're basically the primary nurse, and the medical oncologists are the ones that look to the trials nurses for guidance on the protocol and how to get a patient treated. So think of that as just one patient, but times that by 50 patients or more. And because when my colleague had to go on sick leave, we never got to replace her because you can't just pick a nurse from the hospital and put her in that setting because they have to be trained, they have to be delegated, and have sort of knowledge of how each trial works. So it's hard for somebody to replace a trials nurse. And so for 2 years, me and my colleague, we worked a three nurse workload for 2 years. And then I just developed like a lot of stress. Like I was working a lot of overtime. I mean, it's good that you get overtime pay, but when you're stressed and you're coming home late and you're just tired all the time after work, And that ended up causing me to something triggered within my body, because around that time too, I bought a house downtown, a condo downtown, and so I had a stressful job and a stressful moving into a new place, and something in my DNA just triggered this neuromuscular disorder to come up. And so I ended up developing a rare neuromuscular disorder. They don't know what caused it, but I'm suspecting it was stress induced. But it's called cervical dystonia. And it was to the point that I lost full control of my head movement. Like I was doing this, like I had no control. It felt like somebody had a remote control controlling my head. And this was, I got diagnosed just before I turned 33. And what I just showed you was very sort of gentle. Like it got pretty aggressive. Anytime I got angry or upset, it just pulled even harder and more aggressively. And it was like for 2 months, it was doing that because the doctors I went to kept saying like it's just going to go away, that it's nothing, and so on. And because it got really aggressive, it pinched the nerve between my spine, and so I lost full control of my right arm too. So I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't dress. I had my mom come here. She was supposed to come here for my birthday, and I ended up staying for like several months because I couldn't even get out from bed. Like lying down in bed was my neutral position. There was the only place I can actually relax. And so being healthy, and then all of a sudden within a couple months going to being debilitated and couldn't feed myself, I couldn't dress myself. It took me over 2 years to actually get back to how you see me now. I mean, I'm not 100% physically there, but I feel like I'm 150% better mentally and emotionally through this. But that at that time when I was lying in bed thinking, is this how my life, the rest of my life is going to be? Because I was thinking like I couldn't work out, like I wouldn't be able to go to drive anymore. I wouldn't be able to leave the house. I thought that was my life for the rest of my life. And I sat there not thinking about getting healthy. I sat there thinking about who's going to pay for the bills? Like, how's my partner going to work and pay for all these expenses and all these debt that I had to pay off? And that was on my top of my list of things I was thinking about rather than thinking about my health. And I told myself, if at that time, if I ever get out of this, I would not let myself get in that situation again financially. And so that's one of the reasons like why I got into the business, because of I didn't want to be stressed again from work. I didn't want to be in that scenario again where I was like, if anything happens, that I don't have the money to be able to support myself in that sense. So that's what got me into it. And plus, being a nurse, I mentioned I traveled a lot. Like I not traveled, I worked in a lot of different places. My seniority level for vacation kept resetting each time. And so because like even when I worked at BC Cancer, when I got stressed or like after I got burnt out, I quit and I worked for a pharmaceutical company for 2 years to try to see how it works, how it feels like to work for corporate. So I got the experience to work from home, but I was working 10, 16-hour days, and I was on the road a lot because I was traveling between BC and Alberta. And so that was stressful too. And I got to the point that I was burning out as well. So I quit that. And so I just, yeah, for me, it was just the fact that I wasn't like, when I'm working for somebody else, when I don't have the seniority, I don't have the vacation time. Like I think I was only given about 15 days. And for somebody who's been nursing for as long as I have, normally you get like, I think 7 to 8 weeks of vacation. And for me, it's not justifiable to have that sort of knowledge and seniority and work that kind of stress throughout the whole year and only have like 2, 3 weeks off to be able to relax. For me, that's not quality of life. For me, that's just surviving just to, from paycheck to paycheck, and trying not to get depressed and anxious and sad, because like you feel like this is what your life is going to be like that's, and so that's when I decided I needed to change. And that's when I saw one of my other friends who is doing this business. I saw what they were doing, and so I was able to look into it further, and that's how I got into, and starting an online business and being my own boss. So yeah, sorry, that was a long explanation, but it's
No,
just,
but it's I'm sorry you had to go through that. And yeah,
yeah.
you brought up a good point, like being healthy and then in the span of 2 months, like not being able to do the things that we as everyday living we take for granted, right? Like be able
Yeah.
to feed yourself, dress yourself, all of that, and then for that to go away, that's that's powerful. That's crazy, right?
Yeah,
Like
like
as Pepe said, what a story. Like,
it's
and
yeah, it was to the
how did
point.
you deal with that?
It was I was embarrassed. I was because it wasn't like an actual physical, like I didn't have a cast. I didn't have anything to show people that I had a disability. So going out, I remember my mom was so patient with me. I mean, I love her to death. And for me to even just get ready, it took me 2 hours just to shower, do my basic like activities of daily living. And then to get out, I'd be walking just not even a block and I was exhausted. And I'd tell my mom, like, I'm so sorry. I know we were supposed to go to like just Shoppers Drug Mart, which is just a block away. I couldn't even make it that block. And then so she's like, it's okay. We'll try again tomorrow. So we did that for a whole week. And slowly I would just get out every time. So yeah, it was a humble experience for me, but at the same time, it was a really hard reality check. And I didn't. I took some pictures of it, of like my whole process. I wish in hindsight I would have done like a vlog of just sort of capturing my experience of like how it is, because as I mentioned, this disorder is very rare. Not a lot of people hear about it, and so stuff I saw online was just hearing people that they don't leave their place. They don't, after that, like once you've been diagnosed, that's, you're stuck at home sort of thing. So, but it was a totally different mindset change too, because after that point, I said, you know what, screw this. I'm not going to look at stuff on the internet anymore. And I'm just going to focus on myself and focus on getting better. And look at me now, like it's been 6 years now since I've been diagnosed with this, or coming up 7 years. So things can change as long as you change your mindset of being able to telling yourself that this isn't the life that you deserve. And it also falls along the lines of, you know, with work as well too. And because I've had that experience with my physical health, I use that as a reminder that you can get through anything. You can make things happen. You can change things. So I haven't looked back since starting this business. Like, I mean, you mentioned that we both like to travel, and I love posting a lot of stuff on my business page about travel, because for me, I think travel for me is a reset button. But then it allows you to experience different cultures. It allows you to experience life. And so it's nice that I'm able to portray that in my business page. And also I've been able to actually live it. Like, I mean, last year in March, I worked remotely down in Mexico, working on the business, because I went from full-time nursing. This was a big sort of decision. I went from full-time nursing to casual nursing. So here's somebody that was like coming from a union job that gets paid every 2 weeks, and you get like your what is it, your benefits, and then all of a sudden I said, you know what, I'm just gonna take a risk and try it. And so that's the reason why I went down to Mexico for a month, down in March, just so I can get a better idea as to how to schedule my day. You know, like I said, I worked from home, but I've never worked from home at a travel destination spot. Because that's, you know, when you get to meet people, they're always like, oh, come out for a drink, come out for dinner. So I was trying to get a schedule down. And so that month being down there, I was able to create a schedule, which allowed me when I went down to Mexico again in November. I was down there from November, December, and January, that I was able to have a structured schedule that I'd work from this time to this time. And then after that, the rest of the time is free. So
Party time.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people thought I was always partying all the time. I'm like, no, I'm like, even though despite my stories that I post, I'm like, I'm working. Like, I mean, this business, you have flexibility, but because I want to get ahead with my business, I sort of set schedule. And so for those who are watching this, like, you know, when you first start, you put a lot of hours into it just to get the business up and going. But the maintenance phase of it, you can do 1 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours one day, and then next day you can do like no hours because you've got other things going. And so that's. But for me personally, I just wanted to get things going because I was talking to Erica before this. Like when I got back to Vancouver, I accepted a contract job with BC Cancer because it was a project that I've been sort of part of the last couple of years was trying to get this medical patient program system to be implemented in all like Vancouver General, St. Paul's, Lionsgate, and now they're implementing in BC cancer sites. And so I'm one of those nurses that they call me a clinical informatics specialist. So I'm going to be the tech person, but the nurse person to provide support for this site staff once the program goes live. But right now we're just sort of in the process of getting things, the workflows getting sorted out and trying to move everything from paper to electronic. So for me, it's an interesting project, but at the same time, it's not something that I need to do. Like it's not something that this is something that's going to help me pay the bills. This is just something because I want to take part in it, which is strange because usually when I work for somebody else is because I need it to pay my bills. But now I'm just like, this is something I want to take part in because I want to be part of
Passionate
it.
about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love helping people. And this is another way of helping my patients to have their care more streamlined because I've been there at the front lines where, a missing blood work is not in the system. And so we have to give them another poke. And for oncology patients, a poke is devastating to them because, they've got very fragile skin. So it's nice. I'm really happy to be part of this project, but at the same time, I can see why I'm not really liking the 9 to 5 because the pressures and the deadlines. Like it's just a reminder to me that I am so happy that I have an online business that I can not fall back to, but I have this ability and be able to use that. That I'm not reliant on this new job that I just took on.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so, well, yeah, that's awesome, right? Like you're able to do the things that you want to do,
Yeah.
whether it's being in Mexico for 3 months and scheduling your own time and trying and figuring out what your day will look like, or
Mhm.
doing a passion project where you're helping people and the medical community in
Mhm.
like that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you, what has been, and you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but what has been the biggest change that has happened to you since you've been in this business?
I think the biggest change is when I take a step back, I think the biggest change is not being afraid to take a risk, and getting out of your comfort zone because as I mentioned before, I was in that comfort bubble of getting paid every 2 weeks and being, part of a union and having a secure job. But now that I'm outside of that bubble and realizing the potentials of what having your own business can do, like I wish I would have done it sooner. Like I wish I would have came across this like a year, 2 years ago. But things all happen for a reason, timing, everything as well. So I think that's the biggest sort of thing I've gotten out of this is that now that I've been able to do this, I'll be able to like I have the courage to try other new things, and I find doing this as well, you network with other people, just like even outside of our business community. You network with other entrepreneurs that are doing other things, and so it guides you to like it brings you to like other passions that you want to do. Like I want to get into videography, photography. I want to, I've got a drone. I want to start doing a lot more of those filming stuff and get more creative again. And this is another thing that's allowed me to do is become more creative with stuff that I love. I loved doing when I was in high school, but then it got buried away because, real life
Life
happened.
happens.
Yeah. And so it's nice I can actually get back into those things again.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paulo. I know you're really busy. Any last words that, if somebody is watching right now that is interested or has been looking for something, what would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
So my advice is look into it, follow your gut, but don't wait. There's never a perfect time to start something. When I started this, it was a side hustle. I was like working full time, working long hours. I scheduled it into my day. I'd be getting up an hour early to work on the business, and on my breaks, I'd be like bouncing between clinics. I'd be, maintaining my business, and even after work, I'd be maintaining my business. So I've made it part of my life. And you have to ask yourself, like, if the current state you're in now, where do you see yourself in 5 years? like 5, 10, 15 years, do you see yourself in the same situation over and over again for that many years? Or do you want to change that situation, actually do something that will improve your quality of life, and get out of that repetitive cycle? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, because looking to the future and asking yourself, are you happy with where
yeah,
you're at and being in the same place as you're
yeah,
at right now?
yeah.
And
But
that's amazing.
I want to add this one more thing too before I go, is that, I've taken care of hundreds of patients in oncology, and out of I have a lot of really good conversations with them. A lot of it has to do with death and dying, and like, what they haven't been able to accomplish in life and what they want to do in life. And out of all the conversations I've had with all my patients, the common subject that comes up is time. I wish I had time to spend with my family. I wish I had time to go to Paris and visit all the bucket list countries and cities I wanted to do. And so you have to ask yourself, like, is this, yeah, like I mentioned, is this the life that you want to live, or do you want to live a life where you don't have regrets, you don't question the fact that, you don't have the time to do things. And so because of 2020, with everything that happened, you have to realize, I'm sure a lot of people realize, is that there is no job security anymore with, being in a company that you've been working for 15, 20, 30 years. People are I've seen people being let go after that many years. And so you have to become your own boss. You have to take the ability to get that, your financial security set up, and just have other streams of revenue coming in, and not just from one source. Just so that you can be prepared again for anything that could happen later on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much. Like there's so many good things that you brought up there. I hope everybody that's watching, you're able to find something useful in there too. Paulo, thank
Oh,
you so much for
you're
taking the
welcome.
time with me and for helping me today.
Yeah,
For everybody that's watching, thank you again for joining us. And I will be back tomorrow at noon for to finish off our Go Lives this week. But yeah, I hope you guys can join me again tomorrow at noon. All right, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye,
welcome.
everybody.